So, who is the greatest? We humans, don't we crave power? That's what we do. We love titles and awards and sitting at the head tables and getting to rub elbows with the in group, whoever the most popular are at the time. And that really shows up when you go to class reunions, doesn't it? It's not only who else is still alive, but it's who of the really popular kids is still around. And the disciples of Jesus were no different. They even went so far as to argue among themselves, who is the greatest? Who had the power? Who was the top dog in the eyes of Jesus? In all fairness to them, the households in which people at that time were raised were entrenched in a hierarchy by gender that was distinguished certainly by class also and age. Slaves were at the very bottom of the power ladder, followed only by the most socially inferior group of all, the children. Children were invisible, unnoticed. They counted for nothing. Knowing this, imagine the uproar and the shock when Jesus officially answered the disciples' questions by telling them, "The prize for the greatest among you goes to a child." A child, the least noticeable, the least important, now becomes the standard for who is the greatest among us. That's almost as daring as when Jesus helped and healed that leper, a major social outcast. That's almost as outrageous as when Jesus allowed the woman to wash his feet and dry them with her hair. Once again, Jesus not only rocks the boat, he sinks it. He upsets the very structure of that society. He turns everything upside down and inside out. And he's still doing it to this day. But as if that's not enough, Jesus goes a step further. Jesus actually makes the invisible visible. Make sure that no one misses the point. He uses the unmistakable audio visual, a child. And putting that child on his lap, it seems, and his arms around it, he dramatizes the heartfelt meaning of his message. This, he's telling us, is no uncertain terms, is what true power and true authority looks like. Service. Service is the most vulnerable. Service is the most invisible. Service to the weakest among us. If you want to be truly great and truly powerful and truly number one in my kingdom, Jesus is telling us today, then use this child as your model. Serve. Don't lord it over. Serve. Don't abuse or exploit or take advantage. Serve. This then brings us to the present society. Sadly, we are still challenged by this in gospel terms of our contemporary treatment of children. So many of us are pro-birth, not necessarily pro-life. Who are the children? They certainly have more rights now than they did in the first century Palestine. They are unquestionably more cherished and honored and noticed by society more than ever before. And yet, more than 3 million cases of child abuse is reported in the United States every year. Every 2 hours, a child is a homicide victim. Every 2 hours, a child is killed by firearms. But we want to have our rights, don't we? And yet we have the drive-by shootings. We who live in Michigan know exactly what that's like because we hear about it every single day, about the drive-by shootings that happen in Detroit. And when women get together and have retreats together, a group from the suburb and another group from in Detroit, how different are the prayers. On one group, you're talking about I want my grandchildren to be able to get into the best of colleges. And at the other group, you have, oh God, please don't let another one of my grandbabies be killed by a drive-by shooter. Just the difference that exists today. Children are always and have always been vulnerable and easily exploited. And the reason remains the same. Power is misused for personal gain. As the old saying goes, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Jesus offers a remedy. Turn power into service. Turn power into service and make the last the first. And imagine if we could only do that in our world today. And the people said, amen.